You are giving him way too much power. Every time you text first, double check your messages or wait by your phone for his reply, you're teaching him one thing: you're available on his terms. That ends today. If you want a man to chase you like he can't live without you, you need to stop handing him emotional comfort on a silver platter. Detachment isn't about being rude. It's about reclaiming your dignity. When you learn to ignore a man the right way, you flip the dynamic. Suddenly, he's the one thinking, overanalyzing, missing, craving. You don't win his heart by begging for it. You win it by becoming the woman he can't stop thinking about. So here's the truth. Chasing stops the second you start pulling back with confidence. And when you do it right, he won't just notice, he'll obsess. Let's break this down because the shift starts right now. Most women are terrified of silence because they mistake it for disconnection or disinterest. But that fear is exactly what keeps them stuck in the wrong dynamics. When a man pulls back, women often panic and rush in with messages, explanations, or apologies that were never asked for. That reaction doesn't bring him closer. It tells him you're emotionally available even when he's not. In a man's mind, that kills the challenge. He knows he can go quiet and you'll do all the work. But when you hold your silence with strength, it does something powerful. It grabs his attention and makes him wonder what changed. Men are wired to notice gaps in attention more than they notice constant availability. When you're always present, always responding, always explaining, you blend into the background of his life. But the moment you stop showing up the way you used to, without drama, without a big exit speech, he starts feeling that shift. He starts thinking about you, questioning what you're doing, and wondering why he doesn't have your full attention anymore. That wondering is the seed of desire. You don't have to chase him with words. You influence him far more when your energy pulls back without needing to be announced. One of the most common mistakes women make is using silence as a punishment instead of a position of power. They go quiet, hoping he'll notice, but inside they're fuming, checking their phones every 5 minutes and waiting to explode. That's not confidence. That's emotional manipulation. True power is silent because it doesn't need validation. It's when you choose not to respond because you're busy living your life, not because you're pretending. Men can feel the difference. If your silence is real, it creates curiosity. If it's fake, it triggers avoidance. So if you're going quiet, make sure you're doing it from a place of peace, not panic. Imagine a man sends a lazy one-word response after disappearing for 2 days. The old version of you would have replied instantly, trying to keep the conversation alive. But when you don't respond at all, not in anger, not in desperation, just nothing, it forces him to confront his own behavior. It doesn't just surprise him, it makes him respect you. Men chase what feels rare, not what feels reactive. And when your silence comes from grounded self-worth, not games, it becomes a magnetic force he can't resist. One of the biggest traps women fall into is over-investing in a man who gives them the bare minimum. He sends a hey text at midnight and suddenly you're wide awake, texting back novels, over-analyzing every word like it means something deep. That's not connection, that's craving. And when you respond to crumbs with full course energy, you teach him that minimal effort gets maximum rewards. In his mind, why would he try harder when you're already emotionally committed to someone who's barely present? Men operate based on what they feel they have to work for. If you hand out your energy, time, and emotional access freely, you become a guaranteed source of attention. That's not attractive, it's convenient. The more you reward inconsistency with warmth, kindness, and instant responses, the more you condition him to treat you like an option. The hard truth? He knows you want more, but he's comfortable giving less because you keep showing up like he's doing enough. It's not that he doesn't know better, it's that you haven't shown him he needs to. A common mistake women make is confusing potential with effort. He used to call every day. He used to make you feel seen. So now when he goes cold, you stick around, hoping that version of him will come back. That's emotional loyalty to a fantasy. If he's not showing up for you in the present, stop rewarding who he was and start reacting to who he is now. If a man's attention is inconsistent, your reaction shouldn't be to fill in the gaps. It should be to create space and stop feeding his ego with your energy. Picture this. He likes a few of your stories, maybe sends a vague miss you after days of silence. That's not real effort. That's bait. And if you take it, you restart the cycle of false hope and emotional exhaustion. Instead, respond with your actions, not your words. No need to match his laziness with overcompensation. Let the breadcrumbs sit there. Let him see that lazy attention doesn't pull the same woman he used to manipulate. When he realizes the crumbs no longer work, he either steps up or drifts off. Either way, you stop wasting full course energy on someone who only ever served you scraps. Men are not wired to chase what they already feel they fully have. The moment your attention becomes predictable, always on and emotionally invested before he's earned it, his curiosity dies. Most women think giving more love, more time, more attention will deepen the connection, but when it's not reciprocated, all it does is smother the mystery that keeps a man engaged. If you're constantly giving and he's barely noticing, it's not that he doesn't see you, it's that you've made yourself too available to be intriguing. What sparks interest in a man is contrast. When he feels the shift in your energy, when the texts stop coming so often, when you're no longer watching every story he posts or reacting to every vague breadcrumb he throws out, his mind starts asking questions. Why did she pull back? Is she seeing someone else? Did I lose her? That mental friction is what flips the script. Men get addicted to the unknown. When your attention fades, it forces him to reflect on you, on your value, on what he lost when he took you for granted. That space makes room for his desire to grow again. The mistake many women make is trying to maintain emotional consistency even when the man becomes distant. They double down, becoming more affectionate, more present, thinking it will reignite the connection. But men don't respond to pressure, they respond to contrast. If you never pull your energy back, you never allow him the opportunity to notice what it feels like without it. You become background noise, something he expects, not something he pursues. Pulling back isn't about punishing him, it's about protecting your own value. Imagine a woman who used to text him good morning every day, suddenly stops, not because she's angry, not because she's trying to play a game, but because she realized she was doing all the emotional labor. That silence, that absence of her daily check-in, speaks louder than any words. Suddenly, the man starts checking his phone more, wondering what happened. That's the effect of attention fading. It creates space for his interest to resurface. It's the psychological equivalent of removing a reward from a behavior. When he no longer gets the hit of validation from you, he has to decide if he wants to step up or step out. Your attention is a form of power, and when you place it on a man who isn't showing up, you lower its value. But when you take it back, not in bitterness, but in quiet self-respect, it becomes something rare again. And men notice rarity. They move toward what feels like a loss, not what feels guaranteed. Let your distance remind him that your energy is earned, not assumed. Men don't fall in love with your presence. They fall in love with the space you leave behind when you're gone. Women are often taught that closeness builds connection, so they lean in harder when a man starts to drift. But that instinct is usually the wrong move. Emotionally chasing a man who's pulling back doesn't make him come closer. It makes him feel crowded. And in his psychology, space equals freedom, which ironically is the very thing that draws him back. When used correctly, absence creates emotional pressure. When you pull back, not with attitude or manipulation, but with grace and clarity, it disrupts the emotional pattern he's gotten used to. He notices you're not texting first. He realizes you didn't watch his story. He wonders why the usual energy he's always relied on just disappeared. That wondering is where curiosity grows. And when a man is curious, his brain starts to engage. He imagines you living your life, meeting someone new, or simply not needing him. And that's the trigger. That's what creates emotional movement in him. A mistake women often make is pulling back with expectation instead of intention. They expect an immediate reaction, a quick text, a sudden phone call, and when it doesn't come, they panic and reach out again. But pulling back isn't about punishing him or timing his response. It's about reclaiming your power and breaking a pattern that kept you stuck. You're not doing it to manipulate him. You're doing it to reset the dynamic and give both of you the space to see things clearly. If he cares, he'll feel that gap and move toward it. If he doesn't, your silence will reveal it faster than any conversation ever could. Imagine a woman who always initiated plans, carried the emotional tone of the relationship, and gave constant reassurance. She suddenly stops. She's still kind, still warm when spoken to, but she no longer fuels the dynamic on her own. That shift forces the man to step into a more active role. He has to wonder, plan, initiate, because she's no longer doing it all for him. That's the psychology of absence at work. It changes the flow of energy and forces the man to either lean in or fall away. And either outcome is clarity. Real pullback is internal before it's external. It means your attention, focus, and emotional energy return to yourself. You stop feeding a situation that drains you and instead start honoring your own peace. That internal shift radiates out even if you're still around. The weight of your presence has changed. And when you become emotionally unpredictable, you become emotionally unforgettable. Emotional detachment doesn't mean turning cold. It means protecting your peace while keeping your heart open. Most women believe they have to become distant, cold, or unbothered to take their power back from a man who's been inconsistent. But that's not strength. It's emotional shutdown. What truly works is learning to feel everything while choosing not to act on every emotion. That's what makes you powerful. You don't have to lose your softness. You just need to stop bleeding energy in places that don't serve you. Men are highly tuned into energy. When a woman pulls back with resentment or bitterness, he feels it and mirrors that tension. But when you detach with grace, with calm confidence, no drama and no desperation, he doesn't feel attacked. Instead, he feels the shift. It makes him question what changed. That's the moment you stop being a guarantee and start becoming a mystery again. Detachment doesn't mean silence. It means you've stopped attaching your worth to how he responds. You can still smile, be kind, and even engage, but now it's from a place of choice, not need. The biggest mistake women make is thinking emotional detachment means building walls. So they go cold, dry, or passive-aggressive, hoping to protect themselves while still secretly craving his attention. That mixed signal doesn't create desire, it creates confusion. What works is detaching your identity from the outcome. You're not trying to win him back or make him chase. You're simply reclaiming your energy. That looks like replying when you want to, not when you feel pressured. It sounds like being warm without over-explaining, showing up in your power, not in your panic. Picture a woman who used to overanalyze every message, who used to replay every interaction, wondering if she said too much or not enough. One day, she decides to stop doing that. She still cares, but she no longer lets those thoughts consume her. She sets boundaries, not because she's angry, but because she's tired of abandoning herself. Now, when he texts late at night with vague interest, she doesn't jump. She smiles, reads it, and gets back to her life. That's softness with strength. She's still her, just not available on demand. Men respect women who can feel deeply but still move wisely. When you're able to care without clinging, love without losing yourself, and speak without oversharing, you shift the power dynamic completely. You're no longer the woman trying to prove her value. You are the value. And what makes you irresistible isn't emotional detachment alone. It's emotional detachment wrapped in grace, kindness, and quiet confidence. That combination disarms a man's ego and activates his desire to come closer, because while men may be drawn to beauty and charm, they're magnetized by a woman who doesn't need them to feel whole. Men don't chase what they believe is locked in. They chase what feels valuable and just out of reach. The moment a man feels like he doesn't have to try anymore, his motivation to pursue starts to fade. It's not because he's cruel or ungrateful. It's because psychologically men are wired to pursue things that challenge them. If you give him the experience of security before he's giving you commitment, you flip the dynamic. He's no longer earning you, he's managing you. The problem is many women confuse consistency with over-availability. They want to show their loyalty, so they constantly check in, always say yes, and make themselves emotionally accessible at all times. But in doing so, they remove the very thing that keeps a man interested, the possibility of loss. When something feels permanent without effort, it gets taken for granted. It becomes background noise, not a treasure. The truth is, what makes a man invest is the tension between desire and uncertainty. If he feels he might lose you, his brain kicks into gear to prevent that outcome. Loss is a psychological trigger for men. It creates urgency, focus, and clarity. When a woman starts to detach, not in anger but in peace, he suddenly starts noticing what she brought to the table, the emotional presence, the energy, the attention. He feels the gap when it's gone. That gap is what makes him act. But if you're always feeling it for him, if you're always there to comfort and reassure, even when he's inconsistent, he never gets the opportunity to recognize what he's risking. You can't teach a man to value you by giving more. You teach him through your absence. A common mistake is giving a man full access to your time and heart without observing whether he's earned it. He texts at midnight and you reply instantly. He disappears for 3 days and you act like it's fine when he returns. These moments seem small, but they condition him to believe that you'll always be there regardless of his effort. What you should do instead is pause, not to play games, but to reflect on what you're really receiving. That pause, that delay, that moment of silence, it forces him to feel the weight of his own actions. And that's where the shift begins. If he believes you'll never walk away, he has no reason to rise up. But when a man senses that you are willing to choose yourself, that you won't settle for half attention or vague promises, that you know your worth, he recalibrates. His chase doesn't come from fear. It comes from respect. He chases when he feels that losing you would cost him something real. That's when the pursuit becomes intentional, not habitual. And the woman who knows how to hold that space without begging, without chasing, without over-explaining, that's the woman who triggers a man's deepest drive to commit. Ignoring a man the right way isn't about manipulation or mind games. It's about setting clear, unshakable standards for how you expect to be treated. Women often confuse pulling back with playing games, which makes them hesitant and guilty when they decide to stop responding immediately or step away from constant texting. But here's the truth. Ignoring in this context isn't about punishing or confusing a man. It's about showing that your time, energy, and attention are not freebies. When you do it with respect for yourself, you send a powerful message that you value yourself enough not to chase someone who isn't fully present. Men's psychology is wired to respond to signals of value and respect. When you ignore someone out of frustration or anger, it comes across as reactive and emotionally charged, which often backfires. But when you ignore with intention and calm confidence, it flips the script. You are no longer the woman who's always there at his beck and call. You become the woman who commands presence because she's selective about who earns her energy. That selectivity creates intrigue and respect. It taps into his natural instinct to pursue what feels earned, not what's handed over without effort. Many women make the mistake of thinking ignoring means cold silence or complete withdrawal. They think if they don't respond for hours or days, they are setting standards. But standards aren't about extremes. They're about balance. Ignoring right is about measured distance, not ghosting or being rude, but being unavailable in a way that honors your self-worth. For example, instead of responding instantly to every text, you take time to reflect. Instead of jumping to answer his calls, you prioritize your schedule. This subtle shift shows you're not desperate or needy, and it forces him to step up if he wants to keep you interested. Ignoring with intention also protects your emotional health. Women often exhaust themselves trying to decode every word or action from a man, bending over backward to maintain connection. But by setting boundaries around your availability and attention, you stop the emotional roller coaster. You reclaim your power by deciding when and how you engage. That doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you care for yourself first. When a man sees that you aren't collapsing emotionally every time he pulls away, it challenges his assumptions and makes him more likely to pursue because he realizes you're not just anyone, you're someone who won't settle. Picture a woman who used to reply to every message instantly, always explaining delays or uncertainties. She realized that her eagerness was pushing him away rather than drawing him closer. She began to respond thoughtfully and only when she genuinely wanted to engage, not because she felt obligated. She still communicated warmth and interest, but on her terms. That change in energy made the man chase her more because she no longer looked like an open book waiting to be read. She became the prize, and he had to work to earn her attention again. It's also important to understand that ignoring right doesn't erase kindness. You can still be warm, honest, and respectful. The difference is you're no longer available on demand. This balance disrupts the pattern of chasing and being chased, creating a dynamic where he has to show up consistently to stay connected. And when he does, it's because he respects you, not because he's trying to manipulate or win a game. You're not playing, you're protecting your boundaries and raising your standards, which ultimately attracts the kind of man who values you as much as you value yourself. Ignoring right isn't about building walls. It's about drawing clear lines. It's the act of saying, I deserve respect. I deserve effort. I deserve consistency. And when you make that clear without drama or desperation, men respond differently. They see you as someone who knows her worth and isn't afraid to hold her ground. That confidence is magnetic. It pulls him in far more than constant availability ever could. So the next time you hesitate to pull back because you worry about playing games, Remember this, you're not playing games, you're setting standards that protect your heart and invite the right kind of love into your life. When you start prioritizing yourself, something powerful happens. A man suddenly begins to compete for space in your world instead of you scrambling for a spot in his. Most women fall into the trap of adjusting their entire lives to fit around a man's availability and mood, thinking that constant availability signals value and commitment. But the reality is the opposite. When you make yourself a priority, you automatically raise your worth in his eyes. Suddenly, you're not just an option or a convenience, you become a prize worth pursuing. Men are naturally wired to chase what seems scarce and valuable. When a woman's life revolves around him with no boundaries or independent interests, he subconsciously senses that she's always there. This lack of challenge dulls the thrill of pursuit and lowers his motivation to compete. Instead of chasing, he drifts, sometimes taking her for granted because she's never shown him that her time and energy have limits. What changes everything is when a woman flips the script. When she pursues her own goals, spends time with friends, and protects her emotional space without apology, that's when men start paying attention in a new way. A common mistake is believing that prioritizing yourself means neglecting the relationship or being selfish. Women worry that focusing on their own happiness will push a man away. But in truth, self-prioritization creates attraction. It sends a clear message. I'm whole on my own, and I choose to share my world with you. That kind of confidence is magnetic. Men respond to it because it activates their instinct to compete for a woman who isn't desperate or dependent. When you make yourself the main character of your story, men want to be part of that story, but only if they can add value to your life. Many women also fall into the habit of being too available, dropping their plans, or changing their mood based on his needs or whims. This pattern not only drains your energy, but also diminishes your value in his eyes. Instead of feeling lucky to have you, he starts to see you as a backup plan, something that will always be there no matter how much or how little effort he puts in. Changing this means setting clear boundaries about your time and emotional energy. It means saying no without guilt and refusing to cancel your own happiness for someone who hasn't earned that priority. Think about a woman who used to cancel her plans every time he asked, rearranged her schedule, and constantly checked her phone, waiting for his message. When she finally decided to put herself first, showing up for her own dreams, friendships, and passions, he noticed. Not because she made a scene or demanded attention, but because her life suddenly had a rhythm and purpose that didn't depend on him. He began to compete for a place in that rhythm, showing up more consistently and putting in effort he hadn't before. Her self-prioritization created a new dynamic where he wanted to be involved rather than just tolerated. Prioritizing yourself also means honoring your emotional well-being. Many women absorb the emotional highs and lows of a man's interest, letting his mood dictate their happiness. But when you put yourself first, you learn to protect your energy and keep your emotions steady. This stability is incredibly attractive because it shows strength and maturity. A man wants to compete for a woman who isn't emotionally volatile or reactive, but grounded and sure of her worth. When you prioritize your peace, he feels the difference, and that pushes him to show up more authentically. Ultimately, when you prioritize you, you create a space where a man has to compete for your attention and affection. You stop chasing him and start choosing him. This shifts the power dynamic in your favor and makes the connection more meaningful and balanced. Men chase what they respect and value, and when you live life on your own terms, pursuing your happiness first, you become exactly that kind of woman. Learning to ignore a man the right way isn't about playing games. It's about reclaiming your power and showing up for yourself first. When you stop chasing and start standing firm in your worth, you create an irresistible force that naturally pulls him in. It's not about being cold or distant. It's about being confident, calm, and clear that your time and energy aren't prizes to be won without effort. The moment you prioritize yourself and set those unbreakable boundaries, you flip the entire dynamic. He won't just want you, he'll chase you with a hunger and focus that feels addictive because he finally understands that what you offer isn't something he can take for granted.